Hey guys. All right, we're back again. This time we are going to share your breakthrough story because I think it's a good one, and I think it's a lot of people can take something from it.
So I was telling Lorianne the other night, I woke up at 3. I've been doing that lately, and I don't know if this happens to you, but when you wake up at like that time, I'm usually like kind of wide awake.
Yeah.
It's weird because
I know.
I'm like, oh, I guess I only needed 5 hours of sleep, or 4 hours or whatever, and then I'm like wide awake at 3 o'clock, and then sometimes I can calm myself back down to go to sleep, but for some reason I just allowed myself to get out of bed where I would never do that before. I would just, get really mad or upset and just, I have to fall back asleep, or, especially if I had to get up for work, it's just, I would never allow myself to get out of bed and like give that to myself.
Right.
Because it was obviously maybe a reason that I needed to get out, and I was just going to lay there and fight through it, So I got up and I had some hydrating food. I was trying to hydrate because I usually when I wake up that early, I'm hungry. And just sat there for a while, and something had come up that the day before. I was talking to my husband about it because since I had kind of tried to introduce some more hydrating foods and things, my body was kind of talking to me a little bit and detoxing a little bit. So not only physical detox, as we talked before, is a spiritual and emotional thing. So this was coming up, and it also
emotional things were coming up.
Emotional things were coming up, and I also it kind of came up as well because my mother-in-law is coming to town today and staying with us for the weekend. And the reason I'm saying that is because this is basically where it's coming from. Is my mother-in-law, and I don't know if you all can relate if you've had mother-in-law issues being women, but that was probably the biggest struggle in our marriage, is the relationship with my husband and his mother and me and his mother. And I just was thinking, I'm this horrible wife that doesn't accept his mom, and she comes in, and he's Hispanic, and so it's very different cultures from how I grew up. She's a very he explained it like, well, she just wanted to come in and clean, and she wanted to come in and cook, and she wanted to do all these things and do these things for like my children, and I just always was like, hey, this is a boundary, and I couldn't quite put a name on why I felt that way, but it just didn't feel right, and it felt like he was just ignoring me or dismissing me, and just well, that's my mom, like just accept it kind of thing. And
totally ignoring and invalidating your feelings.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And I wasn't really able to express my feelings, and I'll get to that in a second, because this is what the breakthrough was as I was sitting there, I ended up doing a worksheet on it, and I don't remember exactly what I said about it, but what the revelation was the dynamic between my husband, his mom, and me basically played out the same way in my childhood, where my dad and stepmom and me, there was the three, okay? And my dad left my mom for this woman, and he basically just became immersed in her life. They had a house together, her son lived with them, her daughter came back and forth, her older son was never really in the picture. And then I would go over on the weekends and with my younger sister and and on Wednesdays. So Wednesday nights, I think it was, and that was like every other weekend. Well, every time I went over there, my stepmom basically just laid it all on me. I was ungrateful, I wasn't kind, I was rude, I never, said thank you. I mean, I can't think of all the names she called me, but it was basically like she didn't like me. And I had no idea why. And the hard part was my dad didn't defend me. He didn't say to his wife, no, my daughter's not like that. She's an innocent 10-year-old child. Her parents just went through a divorce.
You're new.
You're new.
Yeah, it's like she's getting used to you.
No idea anything about you.
Right. You basically came in and destroyed
my family.
Her safety.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like the whole
This
thing.
is very complex.
Very complex. So much pain and trauma with that. I can totally accept it now, and I'm so, it was a wonderful thing in the sense of how much I have healed from it, but at the time it was very traumatic and carried that with me for a very long time because, like you said, complex. You know, you look at your father to be your defender, protector, you know, then you go on through your relationships and think, oh, well, you know, you're looking for men to be that, you know, loving, caring protector, you know, for you, and was always searching for that, and getting rejected, and then thinking it was my fault, and blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to my marriage, and it was kind of from the beginning when we had children, and, you know, I'm trying to figure out my role as a mom, and, you know, he's kind of figuring out his role, I guess, as a father. And then he wanted to invite his mom, and again, like in the Hispanic culture, it's just, you know, they come in and kind of take over. Mm-hmm. And that was not what I wanted.
Right.
However, I couldn't say that. I felt it, but I had no idea how to express it. So what I did when I was a 10-year-old child was avoid and give the silent treatment. And I would literally, I remember at my dad's house, I would go in the basement and turn on the TV, and she would get so mad at me for not coming up and talking to her and interacting with her like I'm supposed to, because you're yelling at me or telling me I'm this ungrateful child. And so it all just kind of like came back where it was just like, and I just realize this now, but in the midst of it with my husband, I did not know like that's where I was getting all these feelings coming back up again. Like it was just like I felt like a 10-year-old child again, where I had no voice. He's supposed to be protecting me. He's supposed to stand up for me. He's supposed to be like, Mom, chill. This is my wife. This is the mother of my child. You may come visit and hang out, but don't take over. Yeah. Don't, you know, do your normal things. But he didn't know either. Like he was just thinking, oh, this is just what my mom does, and this is, you know, my wife should
be helping.
This should be great. Yeah, exactly. He's like, well, we're doing it to help you, and I was like, you never asked.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I didn't want the help,
yeah,
you know.
Well, almost like your dad and wife too. I mean, like you can see where he would be like, "Well, we're helping you. We're hosting you. Mm-hmm. We're having you over. Yeah. We're trying to make life feel as normal as possible now."
Oh, yeah.
And
totally
you're just not accepting it.
It's like, no, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah, you're not.
Ask what I wanted?
Yeah, exactly. No. Not hearing what I need. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I just got this major like, oh wow. So the way I was behaving with my husband was exactly how I behaved as this 10-year-old child, and I was literally an adult in a 10-year-old body, 10-year-old child in an adult body, back with those old emotions and old feelings and old trauma, and just being like, I don't even know how to explain this. And we had numerous talks about it, and I would just cry and cry and cry and talk to him, and I could literally never stop crying. And I remember just actually last night when I spoke with him, I didn't cry. I was so clear on, I was able to heal that trauma myself by realizing like, this was what was playing out in my marriage that was never healed as a child. Mm-hmm. And it was just so like amazing to me that like, you know, you hear you when you marry your spouse, it's supposed to be the person that will help you heal your traumas. Well, this was a huge one for me. And having that realization to know like, this is what that big conflict was in our marriage, because I didn't give myself what I needed because I thought my dad was supposed to do that, and I thought my husband was supposed to do that. But it was such a beautiful thing where, since that happened with my dad and since that happened with my husband, it was like another reminder that like, I have to be my protector. I have to be the one that loves me, and I have to stick up for myself. And when I think something's not okay, I have worth to say, you do not treat me like this. I am your wife. Or I am your daughter. Yep. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Oh. I mean, and as children, we don't know how to protect ourselves. Mm-hmm. We can't. We're often innocent. Mm-hmm. And so that's where so many of these traumas come. Yeah. But as adults, part of the realization and the healing is to be like, okay, I'm not there anymore. Yeah. I can actually provide my own protection. Right. I can provide my own standing up for myself and speaking what I need. Yeah. And that is the healing, the healing piece. I mean, it's so
And I think, you
Beautiful.
know, until you can sit and look and see what's staring you in the face, you don't really know how to stand up for yourself or protect yourself. I really didn't.
Well, you didn't even know that was really the trigger and what was going
No,
on there. I
yeah.
mean, and this is what we do, right? We justify how we're feeling through another person's behavior.
Right.
And we say, yes, this behavior is causing this feeling. And I'm completely justified in feeling this anger and sadness
right.
and betrayal.
Right.
When you're not even realizing, no, this is a wound that's being reopened, and this behavior is just reminding you of the wound that needs to be healed.
Yeah.
It's not your husband's responsibility to heal it. And that's what was so beautiful about this situation is you never expected him to heal.
No.
For a long time you did.
I did. Up
for,
until this moment. It was like, you need to fix this. It's your problem. You're not understanding me. You know, and it was always this conflict. And he was always like, I could never figure out why these two women in my life that I love so much could not get along. And I would always say, like, you're missing it. You're missing it. You're missing it. For me, I was missing it as well as him. Because I could never figure out why I felt the way I felt.
Like why it was so strong.
Why it was so
why
strong.
It was like
and I was
so...
like then doubting myself and being like, oh, but I remember so many years of just every time she'd come over, I behaved the same way. I would go into my room and I'd just, you know, like I'd get all mad. And then I'd get on my phone and like distract myself because I was like, I can't deal with this. I'd want to run away. I wouldn't give her eye contact. I mean, I was not nice. I was not pleasant, but I was so afraid to say anything or just even allow myself to even go there because I don't know what it would have done. I really don't. I mean, it was so traumatic. And,
but right, I mean, like that's coming from the 10-year-old perspective,
it is,
right?
yes.
So then when you were able to sit down and write it all out from now this, 40-something perspective and be like, wait, okay, I don't have to come from that perspective. It's not as scary as that anymore.
No.
I've learned so much. I know how to speak up for myself. I realize it's a protection issue. I realize it's a deserving issue. And then you have the maturity, you have the heart space to handle it and heal it.
Right.
And it can be as simple and as easy as that.
Yeah. And it's just so funny because now that I sit here and reflect on it, it's just like, it just feels so right and so calming and so peaceful. And my husband said, well, we should have had this conversation a long time ago. I said, we weren't ready. Excuse me. I said, I had no idea. I could not clarify this. I could not explain this. I'm so glad it happened the way it did. Yeah, it took a long time, but we couldn't have gotten here any other way. It had to happen this way. Yeah. I also want to throw in a piece because what started this was a few weeks ago, actually maybe a couple months ago. My husband and I had gone away for the weekend, and I wrote him a letter, and the letter basically just apologized to him, and I said, I want to apologize how I behaved towards you and your mother, and I want to own and take accountability for my actions, because I know I was not loving. But at the moment, I didn't even realize, too, like why I was writing it, and to bring me to this point, which is so funny, because it just kind of happens that way. And I remember feeling such relief when I was writing it, and then I shared it with him, but then his response was really tough for me because he's like, I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive you. And that was really hard, really hard for me. And I even told him, I said, you can choose to forgive me or not. That's your choice, because forgiveness is for you. It's not for me. I have forgiven myself. And that is all I needed to do in that sense. And I also needed to make sure I made amends with you and told you how I felt I behaved. And then, then we had the conversation last night about it. And I don't know where I was going with that. I lost it.
Well, but he said something really healing.
He did. And he said, I'm so sorry. Because I asked him, do you feel like you were to blame at all in any of this? And his initial, when I read the letter to him, he's like, no. So last night he was like, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry I did this. And you're right. I had no idea. And I said, yeah. And it was just funny because I think like all along I always wanted him to acknowledge that and say he's sorry and that I am his number one and you know all that. And last night when he said it, it wasn't like I was just like, oh, finally I can finally heal. It was more just like I had already done the healing myself.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh, so beautiful.
You didn't need it.
I didn't need it.
But it was the icing. It was the
bonus.
It was the bonus.
The bonus.
Yeah, like we used a word.
Yeah. I mean, I think
bonus.
about that all the time. Like, what are the bonuses, right?
Yeah.
And it was absolutely a bonus because it was like, whether he says it or not, it doesn't matter. I had to do this for me, and that's because that's all it was about.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
Well, I mean, and it just highlights like whatever we think we need to heal.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if that person would just say this to me,
Right.
if I could just get closure on this, if I could
Yes.
just get them to admit this, then I could heal.
Right.
It's not the case.
No.
If they do, that's a bonus when you've done the work yourself.
Exactly.
To give yourself whatever it is you're looking from the other person,
Right.
whether it's forgiveness or
Right. Because it is for us anyway.
it's all
It's
for
just-
you.
Yeah. And this actually takes me back too, because this also started back about a year ago. It was about June last year. I had written a letter to my dad and basically just laid out there kind of the same thing I did with my husband. And it was a very different experience. I mean, I was like heaving, sobbing, reading it to him, you know? And I remember being terrified to read it to him. But I knew I had to do it. And I think at that moment I was looking for him to apologize, but at the same time I still had done some healing work on my own where I had already forgiven him. And then he also said, you know, you're right, you took the brunt of it. I'm sorry, you know, and it was like I needed that more, I think, because that's where it all started, right? Whereas like last night with Robert, it was just it was a bonus.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like where it had started, because he's like, you said that to your dad, right? You wrote the letter and you read it to him. And I said, yeah, I did. And you know, that was kind of, I think, the start of it.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that is really that really is important to like consider how you can sometimes get that and that helps in your healing.
Yeah.
But it can't be the end of your healing, and
that
it's
was really
just
kind
a
of the
piece.
start of it.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
Really kind of the start of it, because I was just feeling so heavy with it, because I knew I had to talk with my dad about it. The whole thing, the divorce, the marriage with his ex-wife, not my mom, but because he's on his third marriage, but the whole dynamic of it. I mean, it was 10 years of pain. It was really tough.
She was not a kind woman.
Not a kind woman. And I took the brunt of it because my older sister never went over there. My younger sister was too young. And her son lived there, like I said, and then her daughter would come back and forth. So I got it all. And then my dad did not defend me. So, you know, and then it was like, I was starting to go into middle school. You know, I mean, it was just like
hardest part. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. And I don't mean to make light of other issues that people have, but for me, like, that was very traumatic. Those 10 years were probably the most traumatic. And then taking all of that on with me for years. I mean,
into your relationships, of course.
All of my relationships, all of that. So, yeah. I mean, it's just
beautiful,
a big
though.
healing moment.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, like what a beautiful healing moment.
Yeah.
And I love that the breakthrough was really realizing how much of that healing you could give to yourself.
Yeah.
And then like how
it
beautiful
was
it is.
So powerful in a positive way.
Yeah.
Oh.
And just beautiful to have your husband be like,
Yeah,
oh
then
yeah, I
validate
acknowledge it, and
Oh my gosh. Because honestly, before, even just a couple of weeks ago, I don't think he could have done that.
Yeah. But that's the shift, that's the spiritual healing,
Yeah.
that's the emotional healing that then comes out and it evokes something different in those you're interacting with. Do you know what I mean? It's like suddenly they can hear, suddenly they can see, and it's just like, wait, what? I didn't say anything different than I did 2 years ago.
Exactly.
But yes, you did. You don't even realize
Yeah.
some kind of healing that you did. I mean, you did, because you are like actively doing the work and and looking to heal all of those layers and all of those levels But I think many of us can heal really in a slow tortoise kind of way, where you're not even super aware that it's happening until suddenly you begin to experience and create different you create different experiences, and then you're like, wow, okay.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. It's so amazing, and you can't explain it.
Yeah.
It's really just unexplainable to put into words. But very, very powerful.
Yeah. But you had to go there. You had to go, and you had to be curious about what was coming up for you as your grandma, your mother-in-law was getting ready to visit. You were like aware, oh wait, I'm having some feelings here.
Which was also interesting too, because like I said, with that letter that I'd written him, I felt like I had just done a lot of work there. But then it was coming up again, and I was like, oh, I thought I had done this already. I thought I'd worked on this. And it was just like, no, you haven't.
Yeah.
You really haven't done all of it yet.
There's still something.
There's still something there. And then just allowing myself to go there and be
exactly.
curious and be like, okay, just sit with this. And it was not a painful thing. I enjoyed writing at 3 o'clock in the morning. Just had the most beautiful time to myself to really heal that piece of me, and then have the revelation of it. That was just like, what?
So this just really popped in quickly, but I've heard that the intentions and the work that you do in that early morning hour, 3 to 5, is like a catapult of manifestation.
Ooh, that must be why. I mean, it was just like, whoa, that was faster.
Yeah, exactly. But it was just,
felt like that.
It can be like a magical time of manifestation and creation in your life, and it seems like, I don't know, just a little side note.
Yeah,
maybe that's what was going on too.
I heard that too. So yeah, and I feel it, and it seemed to be that way.
That's amazing. Really good story. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
See you guys next time.